Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. Words my brethren all around the world watching this video. Hope you're having a great day today as you're tuning in. Make sure you do yourself a damn favor and go tap that subscribe button. Go hit the subscribe button, and surely you will not be disappointed. Now, Mikey Garcia versus Errol Spence, the big fight is upon us. It's a very, very, very big fight for the welterweight division, even though Mikey Garcia has never been a welterweight. It's a big fight for the welterweight division. I've obviously, if you've been following my channel for any length of time, you know that I've made a lot of videos about both these fighters. I've covered them both pretty in-depthly here on True School Sports. And in the case of Mikey Garcia, he's not really a guy that I'm a massive fan of. But we're gonna for this video here, for the sake of this video, I'm gonna remove all my feelings. Okay, we're gonna remove all my feelings, opinions, and predispositions about each fighter, and I'm just gonna give you guys as much as possible my unbiased breakdown of this fight. And hopefully, you guys chime in the comments, and you can add any insights and observations you may have. But let's get into it. Mikey Garcia versus Errol Spence Jr., Cowboy Stadium, March 16, 2019, at Jerry's World. It's going to be an interesting fight, and it's an interesting fight for a couple of reasons. Now, if you're a casual box fan who doesn't do your homework and you don't study the fighter styles, you don't really know their styles, this fight is very easy to look at and say, well, Errol Spence is going to go in there, and he's just going to, what I've been saying, iron out Mikey Garcia because he's the bigger, stronger guy, and Mikey's small and all this stuff. But if you really get into the nitty-gritty parts of their styles, there's some striking similarities in Errol Spence and Mikey Garcia styles. I would class them both as subtle, silent killers, because that's what they are. And what I mean by that is what makes these guys so good in the ring is both of them are very economical. They don't waste a lot of movement. They don't waste a lot of energy. Whatever punch they throw, every punch they throw has purpose. It has a lot of meaning behind it. And if it's a punch they miss, it's probably to set something up. Okay, you see what I'm saying? So, their styles are ruled by subtleties, the subtle aspects of boxing. And that's, to me, that's what makes it such an intriguing fight. It's almost like, in some ways, obviously there's some really key differences between Spence and Garcia, but in many ways, they're fighting each other in the ring. They're fighting a mirror of themselves, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to go through some of the different facets of this fight and give you guys where I think each fighter has the advantage and disadvantage, and then we'll go on from there. So we'll start with the most fundamental part of boxing, which is the jab. Okay, who has the advantage in the jab department? Well, I believe the edge would have to go slightly towards Mikey Garcia because and the reason I would give him the edge in the jab department is because he's a little bit more economical with the jab. He telegraphs it a little bit less than Errol Spence Jr. And it's a piston-like jab that if you watch many of his fights, I was just rewatching his fight against Bronner, his fight against Lipinets, clips from those fights, and his jab is good enough because it's so textbook and because he doesn't telegraph it, meaning that for those of you who don't know what telegraph means, basically when you telegraph a jab, it's like if I'm like this, right? I'm a southpaw, so my lead hand's like this, right? I'm rotating early, so you can kind of see. You can get if you're fighting from the outside, you can see as my shoulder is rotating that I'm going to throw a jab. Well, Mikey doesn't do that. What Mikey does is it's just boom. He just boom. He turns his shoulder, but it's at the last second, and because of that, the opponents have less of it. They have that split second less to react, and that split second means so much when throwing the jab. And I would give him the advantage in that department slightly just because I feel like he telegraphs it a little bit less from what I've seen. He's more economical in getting his jab off than Errol Spence Jr. But, I digress. They both have world-class jabs. Errol Spence, we can go back and watch the Kell Brook fight. The Kell Brook fight, Errol Spence showed that his jab is much like Mikey's, and it's enough. If he lands it enough times, it'll knock the taste out your mouth, as it did to Kell Brook, and it messed up his eye and ultimately his career since then. So both have really world-class jabs. I would class Mikey Garcia's jab as one of the top 5 best in boxing. I would say Errol Spence's jab is probably somewhere in the top 15. But really good. Both have really good jabs. I get the edge of Mikey in that department. As far as power, the clear advantage here goes to Errol Spence Jr. As he is the naturally bigger fighter, and he's one of the elite finishers, not just in his weight class, but in all of boxing. Spence can do wonders, for himself too, in establishing power if he's able to land his jab. So it's funny how boxing, much like life, everything's kind of connected. Errol Spence Jr. has a piston-like jab himself, and his jab will hurt you. It can act as a power punch, and I've seen him at many times in fights use his jab as a decoy. I've seen him use his jab as a punch that he wants to land and hurt someone. So he knows how to vary his jab and use it to his advantage. And as far as how he can do wonders for himself in the early rounds of this fight, he has to land that jab early and often. And if he does it, I think he'll get Mikey Garcia thinking a lot differently when the fight starts. So, yeah, I'll give Errol the advantage in power. Footwork, this is where the fight, I think, will be won and lost, between Spence and Garcia, because they're both masters of real estate. Once upon a time, your boy BT, I went to real estate school for a day, and then I said, no, and the real estate's not for me, so we're not going to do that. But, I'm surprised I didn't see Spence and Garcia there, because these guys both are fantastic at knowing where they're at in the ring, knowing how to manipulate opponents in the ring, using the ring. They both do it in different ways. Spence, he's someone that's, I would argue, with anybody in boxing, that is maybe the best in boxing at cutting off the ring. The way he closes distance is second to none in the sport. And as for Mikey, he's a master of real estate as far as breaking his opponent's rhythms with his feints. And they both win the battle of footwork and real estate in different ways in this fight. Like, for example, with Mikey, I think the way he's going to have to win the battle of footwork and real estate with Spence is he's going to have to do that with his feints. Because he's very good at feinting. That's how he, I know it's Broner, but I'm saying when he fought Broner, that's how he pretty much had Broner confused. And to be fair, even though I class Adrian Broner as a C-class fighter, nobody's really broke down Adrian Broner the way Mikey Garcia did on that night. And the reason he was able to do that, the biggest reason he was able to do that, was his feints, was his ability to break his rhythm, disrupt his timing. And Mikey Garcia, if you go watch his fights real closely, I want you guys to go watch his fights real closely, particularly the Broner fight. He feints in different ways. So, you'll see sometimes he'll feint before he throws a jab. Sometimes he'll throw a jab or a double jab, and then he'll feint off of his jabs. And this can confuse fighters a lot. And because Mikey's so textbook, because he's almost never out of position, he's always, has energy because he doesn't waste a lot of movement, this becomes very troublesome for his opponents. And I think Spence is going to have to deal with that in the early rounds. As he begins to feel him out, he'll have to deal with the feints, have to deal with Mikey Garcia double jabbing and feinting off of that. And it'll be a thing where Spence is really good at figuring out an opponent's timing. And I think that skill that he has is going to be tested more than ever against a guy like Mikey Garcia, who is a master of feinting. So you have that. For Spence, he wins the battle of real estate and footwork by simply positioning. For him, it's about positioning. It's about keeping that right foot, his lead right foot, on the outside of Mikey Garcia's lead left foot. And what that's going to do is, if he's able to do that, one punch that I think will be key for Errol Spence early in, I would say, the first 3 to 4 rounds will be the jab to the stomach. Errol Spence is really good at jabbing to the stomach. Like, if you go watch his fights against I know he fought Phil Greco. I mean, he hasn't fought a murderer as well of opponents, but I'm saying when he fought, I'm giving you guys examples from fights I can remember. Like, when he fought Phil Greco was a smaller man. Greco was moving a lot early in the fight. But Spence's jab to the stomach was able to slow him down. He used that in the middle rounds against Kell Brook a couple times, the jab to the stomach. And it was able to slow Kell Brook down and allow Spence to make Kell fight at the pace he wanted to fight at. You see what I'm saying? So positioning for Spence of that right foot outside Mikey's lead left foot, it's gonna allow Spence to throw that jab to the stomach. And if he's able to do that successfully in the early rounds, it's gonna be a key part of him getting a stoppage in the middle of the later rounds. So that's what he's got to do, right? So then we move on to defense, and this one's gonna surprise you guys. You say who has the advantage in defense here? And to make everybody surprised, I'm gonna say it's Errol Spence Jr. And I'm gonna explain to you why. Because this guy doesn't get the credit he deserves as a defensive fighter. And I almost don't understand what people are watching sometimes, because there's many different ways to be a good defensive fighter. Being a good defensive fighter doesn't always mean you got to be Pernell Whitaker and you got to move your shoulder 7 times and make them miss 15 punches and then counter with 1 jab. Like that's not what being a great defensive fighter is all about. Sometimes being a great defensive fighter could just simply mean not wasting energy, blocking punches, keeping your hands up, and knowing how to punch off of parried punches. And Errol Spence does that very well. And I will even go as far as to say that Errol Spence keeps his hands up as good as anybody in the sport of boxing. His hands don't drop. He throws a jab, that jab's coming right back. He throws a left hand, the left hand's coming right back. His hands don't drop. They don't. And what happens is, he's not doing a lot of this shoulder movements, but what we'll see is, I want you guys, if you haven't paid attention to this, go pay attention to when he fights Garcia. When fighters throw a jab at Errol Spence, he'll catch it. So, like, for example, I'm a southpaw like Spence. So if a guy throws a jab at me, I'm going to catch it with my right hand, right? I'm going to catch it with my right hand. So if it's here, I'm catching it here. If it's here, I'm catching it here. And what that does is, for one, it protects me. That's one. And two, if I want to throw, I can throw any punch I want off that. So if I want to just slap it down and come up with an uppercut, I can do that. If I want to just throw a nice touch jab, I can do that. If I want to throw like a real boom, like a real quick sharp jab, I can do that. And Errol Spence does that very, very well. And I think he has the advantage in defense here. His defense is very tight. Really in his career, if you go look at the course of his career, all right, Errol Spence has really only been hurt, only been clipped real bad a couple times. For one, he got clipped early in his career in his 9th professional fight when he fought Emmanuel Larte as a prospect. Larte caught him with some shots early in the fight. Okay, there was that fight, and then there was the fight against Kell Brook. Kell Brook's speed is his combinations early on, his athletic ability. It was a bit troublesome for Spence in the early to middle rounds of that fight. But as the fight wore on and Spence got to get his timing down, his pace down, his rhythm down, he was able to systematically break him down and wear him out. And ultimately he got to stop his victory and became world champion by going to the man's backyard. So that's what it is. And the thing is, too, he gets your timing down, Pat, early in the fight, because people always criticize Spence of moving in a straight line, but if you watch him real closely, when he's filling you out, he's throwing these jabs or 1-2s, and then he's getting in, he's getting out, and he's moving, side to side, taking half steps back when you start punching, he's making you miss, catching with either hand. So but once he doesn't really start moving in a straight line until you get your timing down, Pat, and his best defense, honestly, is his ring generalship, his use of the ring, being able to understand cutting off the ring, making opponents fight from a very submissive position. If you watch a lot of his fights, I was watching a highlight clip just now of Errol Spence, and they were saying people were saying oh well, Errol Spence only fights boxers who just put their hands up in his shell. They're putting their hands up in his shell because Errol Spence has made them put their hands up in his shell. He has manipulated them to get on the ropes because they felt his jab, they felt the power, they have had problems establishing their feet where they need to be so they can be in proper position to land punches on Errol Spence, and that's why they ultimately get into that position. When you see a boxer, and I don't care if this is Errol Spence, any boxing match, when you see an opponent on the ropes like this, it is an act of their submission to the guy they're fighting. You see what I'm saying? And I just think Errol Spence's defense is actually going to be one of the things that will win him this fight. Straight up, if he has to win this fight, that'll be one of the things that wins him this fight. So his defense, his ring generalship, being his best defense, I think he's slightly better than Mikey Garcia in the defensive department because, and I'll say this, he's going to be able to withstand Mikey Garcia. If Mikey Garcia gets into a exchanges with him on the inside, he'll be able to win that because Mikey Garcia does not know how to take body shots. He can block them. He's done it really well. He can block body shots. But if you go back and I use this fight a lot as a reference, the Salido fight. Salido was getting in the trenches. He was touching that body, and Mike Garcia was beginning to fold up. Okay, he was beginning to fold up, and luckily for him, he got a technical decision. They went to the cards, and he got a decision. But I'm saying that's a fight that I use right there as a reference point. And Errol Spence is a much better body punch than Orlando Salido. He's more crafty than Orlando Salido. He's much more skilled than Orlando Salido. And another thing, too, is Mikey Garcia is on record, and you guys can go check it out for your damn selves. He did an interview with Cynthia Conte on Ring TV. Big shout out to City and Conte, Ring TV, and all those good people. He did an interview with them, and he basically stated that this fight with Errol Spence Jr., and I believe this is his 40th professional fight because he's had 39 fights. This fight with Errol Spence Jr. is the first time in his career he's ever done sit-ups for a training camp, ever in his whole career. And it's apparent, you look at his body, he doesn't have like a real, like, it's kind of, he doesn't have like a incredible physique. But aside from that, physiques aside, because physiques don't matter, he just doesn't take body shots well. He did it against Lito, and if Errol Spence is able to cut that distance, I don't think he'll be able to do it against Errol Spence. And the fact that this is his first fight that he's doing sit-ups for, I just think it's not a good sign. That's just my personal opinion. And then as far as speed goes, we should be led to believe that Mikey Garcia does have the advantage in this department, but you don't quite know because of the fact that he's going to have the extra weight on him. He'll be fighting at welterweight. So we can't really say he has a clear advantage in that, but we'll give him the advantage there. So I give Mikey Garcia the advantage in speed. I give him the slight advantage with the jab. And, for Spence, I give him the advantage in power, footwork, and even defense. So my prediction for this fight goes as follows. And I'm going to give you guys an in-depth prediction here, okay? I think the first 3 rounds of this fight, Errol Spence will struggle to break down Mikey Garcia for the simple fact that Mikey Garcia is very similar to Errol in the sense that, hold on, why is this camera freezing on me? What the hell is freezing on me? Garcia is similar to Errol Spence in the sense that, what the hell? Come on, man. Really? Oh, there we go. Okay, we're back. I froze up. I don't know why I froze up, but what I'm trying to say is, Mikey Garcia will, in fact, Errol is going to struggle to, early rounds at least, I think. He'll struggle to get the timing down on Garcia because I believe they're similar in that sense. He's never fought someone who's this similar to himself. Mikey Garcia's feints, his jab, his boxing intelligence, I think will be able to buy him at least the first 2 to 3 rounds to where Errol Spence is filling him out. But then after that, I definitely see Errol Spence cutting the distance. I see Errol Spence finding ways to get his timing down, land the jab. Once the jab starts landing, I believe he'll cut the distance. He will start touching him to the body. And once he touches him to the body, I think Mikey Garcia's whole game plan changes. His entire game plan will change once Errol Spence touches that body. And ultimately, I see Errol Spence getting a stoppage somewhere around the 6th round, 7th round. I'm going to say 6th round. Because Mikey Garcia, and I'm going to use, like for example, like if you look at the guys he's fought his whole career, right? Because I've seen people, I watch video where people say, well, Errol Spence beat Kell Brook, and Kell Brook only relies on his athleticism and whatnot. And I'll say, okay, but Mikey Garcia, if you look at the guys he's fought, especially on his comeback, he's fought Dejan Zlatichin, Zlatikin, whatever his name is. The guy didn't really he wasn't very athletic, and he wasn't an ultra skillful boxer. Then he fought Rojas, overmatched. Then he fought Robert Easter Jr., a guy who has piss-poor technique, a guy who's not known for his power, and every fight he had at world level, he struggled, and how he ran into a belt was very fortunate for him. Then he fought Adrian Broner, a guy that, if you go back and you watch that fight, was just tactically and fundamentally inept, okay? And he's been fundamentally inept for quite some time now. He's a fighter that's relied solely on his athletic ability, and Mikey Garcia beat him with just basic fundamentals. So he's never fought a guy with this much dimensions, this much hunger, this much power, this much boxing skills, and it's a tall task for Mikey Garcia. And honestly, like, I know I've said a lot of messed up things about him in the past on my channel, but I really do wish him the best of luck and good fortune. Just God bless him, because it's going to be a tough fight for him. It's going to require every last ounce of his boxing IQ, his boxing intelligence, everything to beat a guy like Errol Spence, because this guy is what his name says he is. He is the truth. This is a guy that, as long as he gets those fights, has every chance in the world to be the undisputed welterweight champion of the world. This guy is amazing as far as his overall fight game, from his fundamentals to his defense to the subtleties in his footwork. He does things like Errol Spence Jr. is a master of inches. He's a master of inches in some of the ways, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but the same way Andre Ward was when he fought. Andre Ward, that's what got Andre Ward so far in his career, was he was a master of inches, a master of creating that extra space on the inside to either, to throw punches that most fighters wouldn't be able to throw because they don't have that level of craftiness in their overall fight game, their overall skill set. He does that probably better than anybody in boxing right now. Straight up. When you're on the inside, he uses his elbows. He uses, he slaps punches down. He uses his elbows just to create that little bit of extra space, and he'll come up with an uppercut, or he'll come around with the hook, or he'll go straight through with the jab. And Errol Spence Jr., I see this fight for him being one where he learns a lot, where he gets a bit of education in fighting someone as skilled as Mikey Garcia. But I just think the level of ring intelligence, power, patience, composure, it's just he's the right blend of fighter to beat a guy like Mikey Garcia and beat him impressively. So I'm going with Errol Spence for the 6th round stoppage on for the big pay-per-view fight. You guys let me know what you think in the comments down below about Errol Spence Jr., Mikey Garcia. What do you think about this fight? Like what do you agree or disagree with what I said in regards to the breakdown of this fight? Because these guys are both very similar in some ways, but I think ultimately what they're both going to be trying to do in the ring on the night will be much, much different. Mikey Garcia will definitely try to, for the first half of the fight, do as much as he can to not get hurt and establish that jab early on, take him to the deep water, and I believe he'll try to, land those thudding 1-2s that he's so known for throwing. He probably throws a 1-2 as good as anybody in boxing, but for Errol Spence, he's going to try Mikey Garcia at a higher weight, because when a guy comes up in weight, they're not going to be fully accustomed to it. So you want to push the pace as much as possible. So I think I think Errol Spence will be pushing the pace as much as possible. He'll be trying to push the pace as much as possible. Whether he's successful or not, that remains to be seen. But that's what he's going to try to do. And the more success he has that early on in the fight, he'll get a stoppage. The more he fails that early in the fight, the better it is Mikey Garcia. So these are the things that you need to watch out for. And then also if Errol Spence should get Mikey Garcia on the ropes, I want you guys to watch out for this, because Errol Spence does this really well too. When Mikey Garcia is on the ropes, Errol Spence takes these little half steps back. Like if you go watch the Chris Algieri fight, I was there live. Algieri literally was hurt, and he ran to the other side of the ring, and Errol Spence ran and chased him. Okay, Errol Spence threw I think it was a 1-2. He went hook to the body. Okay, and then threw a jab, a little touch jab, and then he took about a half a step back, and then he pivoted off this half step back into a like a left hook, and he knocked Algieri down. So these half steps back, these little inches that Errol Spence gains from either using his elbows, parrying, or half steps back, are going to be something Mikey Garcia needs to be on the lookout for. And I'm sure, being as astute and smart as he is as a fighter, and with a trainer like Robert Garcia in his corner, his brother, they've seen these things and they're going to be on the lookout for them. And if they haven't, then I'd be very worried for them. But that's my breakdown of the fight. Mikey Garcia, Errol Spence Jr. from Jerry'sville at Cowboy Stadium. Big fight. The winner of this fight's probably looking at a Manny Pacquiao fight. So should be fun. Should be fun to see what happens. And yeah, just let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Take the time to subscribe. Like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Dania. So until next time, take care, guys.